So Eli, how about a little bit of follow up? We got a lot of things here on the follow up that maybe we could hit up a bit. What do you say?
Yeah, let's follow the follow up. The followers want the follow up of our following, and we should get on that. I think.
Let's do that. So first bit of follow up here. Being roommates with Eli follow up. I like this one because it pertains to a discussion we had about whether or not you and I would be good roommates, and I think we had the chance to test that a little bit.
Yeah.
About 2 months ago, where you graciously let me into your home, and I stayed there for a few nights, and I think we had a great time. What do you say?
I think it was a good time. As context, the last two episodes of the podcast we were able to record in person, which is pretty tight. Marco came up twice to visit me down here in Austin, I guess, compared to the rest of the United States down here, but up here relative to Marco.
Right.
Yeah. It was a good time. Marco was on my couch, which I think, was not the ideal setup for Marco. And I think Marco will also attest to that. That is not the ideal setup, but I had a pretty comfy couch, all things considered. But yeah, no, I think it went super well from my end. On Marco's end, I'm wondering, again about the comfort level of the couch. I think is the main issue.
I think it's funny that you never asked me about whether or not I found the couch comfortable or not for like 4 nights or however long it was that I stayed there. It's only now that you're asking me about the comfort of the couch.
Well, the tough thing is that if there's not like, I think at that point it was just like the awkward in the room, the elephant in the room of like, so you're sleeping on the couch, and like I didn't want to bring it up because I think I was worried about like what would happen if I did bring it up. Because it's like, what if you said like, no, I hate the couch? I'm like, oh man, like that's like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I gotta go to a hotel now. Nah, man, the couch was fine. I think if there was something that maybe you're skirting the line of, or you're what's the word? You're tiptoeing around is maybe our different temperature acclimations. I don't know if that's fair to say or not, or if that's something you want aired out in the open.
Okay, well,
news to you. How often did I complain about how warm I found it?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Oh yeah. So that is something we can talk about in the open. And I think that's definitely something that could be brought out in the open. Is that like my family keeps everything like super warm, like 80 degrees. I mean, that's like a little hot. That's like running a little hot, but like I think everyone in my family runs like pretty hot. From the standpoint of like, I think my dad just likes to save money. Is like the real like start the genesis of this whole like my family running hot. I don't think it's like a genetic thing. I think it's literally just like
right, it's
a financial thing. But my dad just does not want to spend money on the air conditioning, so we like we run pretty hot, and like. I don't know. I like don't love it hot personally. I've gotten used to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And this is just how I live now. That's not the only AC issues that we had, on that trips. And maybe that's why you have an extra hot. I was about to say an extra hot view of my family, but that didn't sound right. The reason
I'm keeping that. That's staying in. That's staying in the final cut.
Yeah. The reason that you think my family is super hot is that when Marco came by, he was originally supposed to stay in the upstairs room where my parents stay.
Yeah.
And when he came, the AC was not operational. So that definitely adds to the hotness of the room, and we were like trying to get it up, and that's why he eventually stayed on the couch, was because the AC upstairs didn't work. Kind of addressing both issues. My brother's friends came up like 2 weeks later, and obviously the AC was still not working at that time when they came up. So instead of, and there was 3 of them, so like there was, not all gonna fit on that couch, unfortunately. I have a nice couch.
I barely fit on that couch, much less 3 people.
I was gonna say I have a nice couch, but it's not that nice. It's not a 3-person couch for sure.
Right.
What they did was they literally took the mattress from upstairs. So like the mattress that's on the bed upstairs, they just like hauled that downstairs and like slept on like the floor. with the like
That's
mattress, and then like on the like like there's like the mattress, and then the mattress is on the floor, and they just like laid in that.
that's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's a way to like. Is that crazy? They like slept on a mattress on the floor. Like I feel like that's a pretty like standard thing. I think the crazy thing is that they slept on like brought it up and down. Like I think that's the crazier thing. Cause
That is the crazy because there's like a bend, right? There's a
yeah,
turn.
those bad
And
boys are heavy. Yeah, and there's a bend. Yeah, you have to go like there's you have to pivot it from like being like right side up to being like on the side, and it's like there's a lot of pivoting.
right. Well, what I'm saying is your stairs change direction at some point, don't they?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
switchback, and that's
Right.
like where
Right.
the real pivoting comes into play. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm Ross moving the couch and whenever I move anything up there.
I do want to say I don't know if this is appropriate or not to say, but I'll say it. Your parents have a lovely, lovely upstairs bedroom.
Yeah,
I so wish I could have slept in it at one point, but I did not because it was so humid and warm up there.
it would have been lovely. In this case, it was not lovely. It was like 100 degrees up there, but
Right. It was like Malaysia up there. It was
yeah, it was
crazy how
toasty.
warm it was.
I should just like that should just be like this like sweat like room. Now it's like that's just like the therapy. You just like go in there and you like sweat out, you like cleanse or whatever.
But I think aside from that, we had, there were no issues. That we weren't fighting over toilet seats. We weren't fighting
No,
over, who you're inviting over or anything like that. I mean, it was
no,
chill. I
we
think I
gelled.
think you.
I think the one thing that I'm gonna bring up though is the milk.
Ooh,
Is the thing
the
that I'm
milk.
gonna bring up.
The milk.
I think that you're not gonna remember this, but I thought it was hilarious. But I didn't say anything at the time because again,
The
I think it's
milk.
the same thing about the couch. Is I just didn't want to bring it up, but I thought it was hilarious at the time.
Oh, I don't.
So
Oh, I don't. You're gonna have to remind me.
yeah, okay. I'm gonna start from the top. Is that so? I think this is the first time you came. I'm not sure. One of the times you came.
Okay.
It was like in the morning, and you had just gotten there, and like you were a little hungry. I think you hadn't had anything. Maybe you had something small on the road. I don't know. I was pretty hungry, and we were getting like, I think I offered you Cheerios or something like that.
I remember the Cheerios. Yeah.
For the audience, like I see Marco open up my fridge, and like my milk is like not like close to being expired. Like it says like June 18th, and we're like on like June 16th or something like that, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
like this, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't think that you even noticed that you didn't notice me noticing you, because like I saw
Okay.
this man. He opened up my milk, took like one big old whiff of it, and then just put it back in.
Oh.
I had it
don't remember
afterwards.
this at all.
I had this afterwards, and like I had the milk afterwards, and like it was fine. Like the milk was like totally fine, but like it wasn't up to the Marco standard. It didn't pass the smell test, I guess.
I swear to God, I don't remember that at all.
It's so much more funny to me now that like you didn't remember it at all, because it like clearly had like a huge like psychological toll on my mind, and now I'm just like I kept on like what was it? Was it something I did? Was it something the milk did? What spawned this mistrust of my milk? But yeah, we're over it. The milk is long gone, so
Yeah, I would hope that milk is long gone by now.
no need to cry over spilled milk.
Let's crack on.
All right, let's crack it out.
JD Vance follow up.
Yeah, I'm glad that was the next one on the thing, because I had seen that. That is, I think that perfectly like encapsulates our arguments that we had made previously about that movie, and like legitimizes it.
I think it does, because in case you don't know, our boy JD Vance is running for Senate in Ohio. In case viewers don't remember, JD Vance is the author of the book that became the movie Hillbilly Elegy that we reviewed, I think, in our third episode.
Yeah.
We pretty much tore the movie to shreds. We tore
Nothing.
the ideas to shreds, the script, everything about it was just not very good. Came away with it with not very good things to say about it. And I think I remember also saying that J.D. Vance himself went from like reasonable, like Appalachia whisperer to just full on right wing ideologue and Trump supporter and everything. This is not a political podcast, but we are breaking some political news here,
Yeah.
and telling you that J.D. Vance is running for Senate in the state of Ohio,
Yeah.
and he has made quite the mess of himself.
We're breaking this news that I think first came out on Politico. The article is from July 1st.
Like a month and a half ago, yeah.
we are breaking it. I think it's safe to say the news has broken, and we are picking up the pieces of this news.
But we are. But I think it's something to look at. We're going to be following his campaign, and maybe bringing a few updates to the Wrong Fit table. This is not a political podcast, but Eli and I, we have political views that by now I'm sure are probably pretty clear. So let's enjoy the ride together and see how he does. You rooting for him? Are you hoping that he pulls through and makes it to the general election?
Am I rooting for the Trump supporter? No, I'm not. Spoilers. I think it's funny. Like when I first saw the headline, even though I had I was familiar with the book, we had both watched the movie, obviously,
right?
And when I saw the headline, and I'd seen him on the news before, and I don't know why when I saw the headline, it just didn't click who J.D. Vance was,
right?
And I was like, is that the guy from Scrubs? Is that
what
Vance? Where do I? Yeah, well, the guy from Scrubs is named J.D.
Oh,
in the show, yeah.
Okay,
and I was like, is that Vance? I don't know. What name is that? And then I clicked on it, obviously, and I was like, oh yeah, this movie that I watched and I've seen this person before. But yeah, it's I think no surprises from that news, because it's you can see that it's pure opportunism.
Right.
That book was clearly pure opportunism. Making it into the Netflix special, was definitely trying to tap into some sort of emotional thing.
Well, and that's something that I meant to write down here, but that has really crystallized in my head as well. That, I mean, again, if you weren't there for that political moment in 2015, 2016 about Trump supporters in Appalachia and the quote unquote middle America and whatever, if you weren't there, you wouldn't understand that this guy was seen as, again, the Appalachia whisperer, the guy that knew what it was, but he wasn't super political about it, right? So you kind of respected that. Even if you didn't agree with some of his conclusions or whatever, you kind of thought, well, this guy isn't really much of a politico. He's just a guy with a story, right? However twisted the message can be at times, right? But he is truly, if you look at some of these headlines that he has made since announcing for Senate, these are some full. This is some Roy Moore type headlines. I'm not. Even, I wish I was joking here. He has really exposed himself, and I think it comes to this idea about the mainstream media idolizing these people without knowing that I think inevitably they're going to have a moral collapse.
You're right that he lost a lot of legitimacy, and I think that this totally comes from what you're saying. Yeah, in the wake of the 2016 election, there was just so much, I think I've probably read, between Marco and I, we've read 100, Vice News, Politico articles about why, so-and-so state turned red and why Trump won.
Right.
This is the anecdote that totally encapsulates why Trump
all
won.
Of these stupid self-aggrandizing stories about this, and I mean, we won't get into it now, but I think now we can look on it. We have 5 years of hindsight. We can look at that and say that probably wasn't really the best thing to write about in the wake of that election.
And it's just cheap. You're gonna grab attention. This is the question that everyone's asking, and from that perspective, it's okay, yeah, I guess that is what journalism should be answering, is the question that everyone's asking. But on in a more once you get into the muck of it, once you get into the real subject matter, it's you really are missing. You're just really missing. The point once you get into what these articles really are discussing, and they're not really coming to any great conclusions and whatever.
Watch this space. J.D. Vance running for Senate. J.D. Vance on the advance. Here's something that maybe we won't want to talk about, but how about New Year's resolution follow-up?
Oh, man.
Oh man.
The new year feels 10 years ago.
Let's keep it simple. A few things that stand out to me. How's the standing desk working out? I don't think I saw you stand at it even once when I was there with you, but that may
Oh
not have been the
man,
most representative sample. How's the standing desk working out?
the standing desk is working for what, like, the bare minimum of what I originally intended for it. So like originally, like I think I mentioned it the first time, was like what I originally intended for it was like when I'm presenting or when I have to like speak publicly,
Mm-hmm.
it's for me to stand at, like, for to give, especially giving presentations of some sort to like a group, just to like, keep me more attentive, keep me more on the ball, like, etc. etc.
Right.
And that's kind of that's definitely worked on that front.
Hmm.
Definitely when you were here, like, it's not like I was giving many presentations. Like, I'm pretty sure you were here mostly on the weekend.
Right.
I had wanted to explore. So on that hand, it's a resounding success, yay!
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's been less of a success because I did want to like push into the space of being like standing and doing work, and it's not like I've never done that before. Like, I've stood at the desk like just to do work, like not on any Zoom meeting, not on any like recording or whatever. Just stood there silently, plodding on with my work.
Right. Right.
I've definitely done that before, but it's definitely been a less of a common occurrence. So it's I should do it more, honestly, because like my back and like this is a good reminder. Thank you for the wake up call. How have your New Year's resolutions kind of gone down?
Not super well, as you can as you can probably imagine, like most people.
Yeah, though I just like the way you said that. Not super well, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
not super well. Well enough. Maybe if the audience doesn't remember, one of my resolutions was to try and listen to more music, like more new music.
Yeah,
So the
diversity.
year of music was supposed to be 2021, but that has
Yeah.
been very difficult, really slow going as well.
Yeah,
It can be hard to get excited about stuff, particularly if maybe like your favorite artists haven't been releasing a whole lot of new material as well. A lot of my favorite artists haven't really released much. I just haven't like made the time to try out new stuff, especially because every time that I do, I get really frustrated quickly when I encounter like multiple songs in a row that I just don't really care for.
yeah, it's
So
hard to push through.
yeah, so Year of Music has kind of fallen over a little bit. The whole thing was to try and increase the number of unique artists and like new experiences and new whatever. Try to get my numbers up because I mentioned
Yeah,
before. I mentioned my last FM account telling me that
yeah,
I didn't really
yeah.
discover any new artists in 2020. Um, I don't think I can say so far that in 2021 I've discovered a new artist of note in my listening habits. Another piece of follow up here: vaccine follow up. In between the time that I wrote it, like a lot of stuff has happened since the
Yeah,
time that I wrote down vaccine follow up. Because I had a few thoughts on like, because I thought we might record sooner, so I was like, oh, like what do you think about like a third dose and
yeah.
what's
Crazy third dose. What?
yeah, and now
Like
we're
that's what it would have been back then.
right,
But now
and
it's like,
now
okay,
now
yeah,
that's like
we literally
it's
have
like a
a
foregone
third dose
conclusion
coming.
now about a third dose. Like we know that Americans are going to be like authorized to get third doses as early as September. Obviously, we know that people have propensity to like cut in line and whatever. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't even. We're just in such a weird situation where it's like, it's so weird because I feel like it's just like late, or like it just swung back from like people literally cutting in line to get vaccines when they don't yet qualify, and like effectively taking a vaccine away from someone who needs it more,
right,
versus like now having such like an like such surplus of vaccines, and literally a ton of people out there that are just refusing to get the vaccine and like begging people to get their vaccine. And so it's definitely, the pendulum has swung a bit in that. And I'm wondering, when it comes to this third dose, how it's going to go down.
right,
Um,
yeah,
I haven't been doing I haven't been doing a ton of like research on it. I'm definitely of the doing what they tell me to do public health camp,
yeah.
which I think is like better than the majority of the population, because I think the majority of the population just try to maybe not the majority of the population, but like a lot of people are just like not doing what they tell you to do.
Well, a
So
lot of
it's
people
like
just
that's
want to
kind
do
of,
what they want, right? In lieu
yeah,
of the public health guidelines.
Yeah, like I'm doing what I'm told. Maybe I'm not doing like I'm just doing what I'm told, and I hope that that's what I'm told is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm assuming, I'm being told the right thing, but I just have no conception of public health enough to like really know.
Well, and I think you're in an interesting position because you are one of the minorities, Eli,
Yeah,
who
the
have
JJ
the
boys.
Johnson and Johnson vaccine. One of only 14 million Americans, which seems
Wow.
really low. How does that feel?
I feel
You
special.
feel special? Yeah.
Yeah, special and like I do feel like behind because everyone's talking about like this third dose, and I'm like, man, I haven't got my second
Yeah,
dose yet.
you
Like,
get a second dose. Yeah.
I am right there at the first dose. Interesting of the very minimal information, like I said, very minimal research that I have done. I've heard that for us JJ boys,
Right.
us JJ crew, the second and third dose for us will come as the like the either the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine. So basically, I'm just gonna get like your like what vaccines you have, or what other vaccines other people have. Like I'm just adding the previous vaccine to my vaccine. So I'm gonna like trying to like Pokemon collect them all out here, just trying to get all the vaccines up in here.
I hear you.
Like I'll definitely get my third dose as soon as I can, as soon as it's available.
Right.
I think that like you're definitely in that same boat of well, we like the pandemic has shifted so much since we've been in person.
It's crazy because like when we were in person, it almost sounds like quaint again, because I was talking about like we only had like 7,000 cases nationwide,
yeah,
which was like
yeah.
crazy, and like no cases in Austin, no cases in Laredo, like nothing everywhere. It really felt like what a time to be alive. Like that June, man, June 2021. Like that's gonna go down in history as like
it's so lit.
as like,
man.
dude, it was though. Honestly,
I miss that.
honestly, I mean, just as a person, right? I don't mind the switchback. I don't mind it so much because I've had like my fill of a lot of this stuff in the past 2 months.
Yeah, so
I'm
we're
not,
back to like Hermit Marco mode.
well,
Yeah.
not full Hermit Marco mode. Definitely not full Hermit Marco, but I don't mind waiting it out and seeing like where things go because it's like, well, I had a pretty good like month and a half. June was good, July was good, and like I'm kind of okay. I'm more just worried about. I mean, obviously, what everyone else is worried about. Now we have hundreds of thousands of cases a day, and there's people dying, and we have the possibility of like breakthroughs and whatever. So it's crazy. One of the things I put down here is, is there any changes to your life since June? I mean, June was not that long ago. Like, it was not that long ago that you and I were in person, and like
I had zero care.
Zero care. Yeah. And like, all of our troubles were away. We had parties, we went out to eat, like we were just chilling, straight chilling. Obviously like we mask up in public places and whatnot.
Yeah.
But most of it, we were like, we didn't think twice about going out to eat or whatever. Now I don't know for you, that's why I'm asking, but like for me, like it's definitely more of a risk reward calculus, thinking about like waning effectiveness or whatever. And we're eating outdoors a lot more now. Like we're really like focusing on, hey, like does this place have an outdoor area? Like we'll eat outdoors and get our fix there.
Yeah, that even seems like a super rational way of addressing this.
Yeah. And not treating it like full lockdown because that's not what it is, right? It's a bit more. It's more nuanced than that. So I want to know, like, what's changed for you since June, if anything.
So I haven't had an interesting, I feel like, journey of like transition to like this new era of COVID, the Delta era.
Right.
We can pin that in.
Right.
So I recently I know you know this, Marco. I recently traveled to Los Angeles, to California.
Right.
I had a family engagement that I had to go to. I hadn't been on a plane since I guess it was winter 2020, January 2020. Like, so it's been like a full year and change that I haven't been on a plane, and like that was super weird. And like going to Los Angeles, and it felt like this was right in the middle of this transition from like no cares in the world to like a lot of cares in the world.
Right.
And maybe I was just a little bit late to the party because I left around the beginning of August, like August 5th or something like that. And that's when I, maybe again late to the party, but that's when I started hearing like, oh yeah, ICU beds, like blah blah blah. People are going to the hospital and stuff. Breakthrough cases racking up.
Right.
I think that at this point, a lot of the discourse was on like the novelty of the breakthrough cases and the fact that most of the hospitalizations and like most of the extreme cases have been with unvaxxed populations. And I think it was definitely, we were still in the mode of like, just get the vaccine, like please.
Yeah.
And we're still obviously in that mode for those who haven't gotten the vaccine, but we're still, I think we're in a higher like DEFCON level of like, even if you have the vaccine, you want to be a little bit aware. And like, going to California, I think that like, I really felt like I had like kind of a 0 to 100 kind of situation. Cause it's like, in Texas, me and the rest of the population in July, like started getting like a really lax about COVID stuff.
Yep.
I think it was more than the average person. Like I'd still wear a mask in public places like the grocery store especially,
right.
But I was definitely dining indoors. I was definitely meeting big groups of people.
Me too.
And like there was a lot of activity on that front, and so like going to California, being on the plane where obviously masks are required, they're not only are they required, they're like super mandatory. Like there's a huge health risk of circulating air, like, definitely you want to wear a mask on the plane. And then, going to California where they have a lot of laws mandating the use of masks in any, public area, especially inside, that was a big transition for me, coming from Texas, where it's like, in Texas, I felt like I was the one that was like, the, like on the far end of the COVID spectrum of like really trying to be super safe, even though I was eating inside. And like, short answer, I don't think I'm going to change completely in my life yet. Like I'm definitely gonna be more conscious of being close to people, more conscious of like, hey, maybe like wearing masks, or maybe not going to certain events, or maybe starting to get COVID tests more regularly, because I haven't had a COVID test since March, I think, maybe.
Right.
That's like the last time I had a COVID test. So
yeah, I mean, and you're doing more like in-person work stuff now, right?
Yes and no. There's a lot of plans for that, but I think, not to get too in the weeds about it, but like, there's a lot of pushback, I think, of like not wanting to go in person unless it's necessary. And I had some in-person, I had some in-person like social events for work. Yeah. That was like, but that was only like 4 people and like very limited stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I think that it was perfectly safe. We were outside and very careful and masked on. But so I can go in person to my office like whenever I want. I haven't been because I haven't needed to be. Originally I was supposed to have been, but I'm not required anymore. But if I do go, the rules are in the common areas, you have to be masked up. In your office, if the door is closed, or in your office, if you're like no one's in your office with you, you can obviously take your mask off while you work.
Right.
But there's hasn't been a reason for me to have to go in yet. So I'm just chilling down here.
I think it's smart. Yeah,
we're definitely taking it. The nature of my job, we can do it virtually, and we're taking it necessary precautions. So.
It's time for our favorite segment that we've been doing for a while now, the top 5s, which hopefully haven't gotten old yet.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it too.
It stayed fresh for me.
I like it too. It stayed fresh for me too. But there is something that we have to acknowledge, you and I.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's be frank.
A little bit of live, do a little meta talk here on the pod. I know people love to hear that.
The pod talking about the pod.
The pod talking about the pod. Segments are too long. I hate to say it. They have been too long. I have been in the editing room and have kind of, what's the word? I've been a little bit troubled. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the word. I've been troubled at the sheer length that our top 5 segments take.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting in the way of doing more of what we normally do here on the pod, which is just talk about random stuff that, piques our interest, right? In episodes of the past, we talk about branding, we talk about sneakers, we talk about music, we talk about movies and stuff, and we've been doing a little less of that to make room for these bigger discussions, which have been great. People really like them. The reviews that I've heard.
Yeah,
Um,
I like them.
but I think we need to be frank,
Yeah,
right?
let's be frank. Okay.
We're frank here on The Wrong Fit, and we acknowledge our mistakes. We acknowledge where we need to improve, just like normal people should. So here's my idea, Eli, to try to make these segments a little shorter while still having the kind of rich discussion that we normally have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Instead of going one by one, going from 5 to 1, and having these kind of open-ended discussions.
Yeah.
That I think that's where the bloat really comes in. What I would like to do is maybe you and I both, we say our top 5 from 5 to 1 in a shotgun style, right?
Okay.
Like machine gun style. And then we have an open-ended discussion from both of our lists. And we talk about how similar they might be, the lists, and we talk about, oh, that game's your number 3. That's crazy. I hate that game. And then we kind of go off, and until the conversation naturally dies down. And hopefully, when all's said and done, maybe the conversation is only like 30 or 40 minutes instead of an hour and a half like they've been before.
That's a good call.
So you with me, machine gun style? You're okay with that?
Yeah. Let's try that. We can workshop it for sure.
For sure we can. We don't stick with one thing all the time here on The Wrong Fit. Okay, we trial stuff. All right, we try stuff out.
I think one thing we should do though is to share our lists with each other, just so we can have a reference. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to share it with you through Messenger. Okay. So if you want, I can go first, and then you can go. Quickie. Honorable mentions. Super Smash Brothers Brawl for the Wii.
Oh, classic.
Civilization 5. That's an honorable mention.
Nice.
Pokemon Soul Silver. It's a good one. And GoldenEye 007 for the Wii as well.
Ooh, classic. That's a classic. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, those are all my honorable mentions, okay? Oh, by the way, we haven't even said what we're doing. Oh my God, it just occurred to me. That we didn't even say what the top 5s were.
Yeah, we were too frank. We were too frank.
Top 5s are video games, okay?
Yeah.
These are our top 5 personal favorite video games of all time. That's what the top 5 is.
We're not talking about Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the movie. We're talking about Super Smash Bros.
Right,
Brawl,
exactly.
the video game. Okay.
We're not talking about GoldenEye 007, the novel. We're talking about GoldenEye 007, the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Okay. So, number 5, for my number 5, Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Okay.
For the Wii.
Yeah, for the Wii.
Number 4, The Sims 3 for PC. Number 3, Pokemon Emerald for the Game Boy Advance. Number 2, the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 for the PC.
That's okay. We got some similarities already.
And number 1, Minecraft.
Nice.
So that's my list. I'm going to pop it over to Eli so he can have a running reference. There you go. And Eli, let's hear your list.
So Minecraft actually made my honorable mentions. That was hit my honorable mentions. Another one that we had similarity in the honorable mention category was Super Smash Bros. Brawl. That was another one.
Awesome.
Didn't make the cut, but I wanted to give it a shout out.
Yeah.
The 2 others, 3 others, Battle for Middle Earth 2. It's a Lord of the Rings game. Lots of fun. It's like a strategy game. And then Injustice Gods Among Us, which is on the Xbox and other consoles, like a fighting game, definitely Mortal Kombat style, made by the Mortal Kombat company. Cool. And Age of Mythology, which is a deep cut, really old game, similar to Battle for Middle Earth, like strategy game.
Awesome.
All right, and now onto the official top 5. All right, I tried, and kind of to preface it a little bit, I tried to make sure my picks were from different franchises. There's no repeat franchises.
Yeah, I did the same. Yeah.
And I didn't want any. I wanted some diversity in game type too. Tried to. But I definitely found myself returning to the similar era of video game, which I think you'll definitely see. When I was looking at the release date of these games.
I'm waiting for it.
So 5, Call of Duty Black Ops 2010. And I'll give the release date just to give some context. Middle Earth Shadow of War for the Xbox, 2017. Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga, 2007 for the Wii. Batman Arkham City,
Nice.
2011 for Xbox 360, and finally number one is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, 2013, both for Xbox 360 and Xbox One.
We got some. So it's funny. Like my list has more in common with your honorable mentions than our lists have in common with each other.
Yeah, that's
I would
interesting.
say.
I wonder if it's like
Yeah.
a little bit of that. I'm just gonna drop the Google Doc and sorry.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I send Eli a nice, succinct message on
curated.
Messenger, and I have to go to an external website, some shady external website, to see
Yeah,
Eli's top five favorite video
you're
games.
gonna get some viruses, man. I'm just dropping some viruses on you.
Google,
Google Docs gonna get
yeah, it's
some.
Google Docs .su. Okay, I'm looking at your list. You're looking at mine.
Yeah.
We're listicling.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense that we have a lot of overlap in our honorable mentions because I think that, like, there's some games that we just had to honorably mention just because like they're just the classic games from our our youth, our development period. That's like a Super Smash Bros. Brawl. That, like, especially our age, like that's just like you have to mention it. Maybe it's not your favorite, maybe it's not your top one, but you got to mention it, and you have to mention it honorably because it's like everyone played that game. And Minecraft, obviously you had the top, I had it at the honorable mention area, but I think it's another one that, like, being our age, it has to be somewhere on the list,
Right.
at least mentioned, just because of how big of a cultural impact it had on everyone in our generation.
No doubt. I mean, I've been playing Minecraft off and on for like the past 8 years, and even just doing the most basic, simple things like starting up, building a house, and like getting iron, getting gold, getting diamonds. I mean, there's still so much whimsy and magic to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and they're constantly making the game different and better, and sometimes worse, but sometimes better. They're always messing around with it, and I think I didn't think like I didn't think until I kind of sat down to really think about this list that Minecraft would top it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I kind of put everything on balance, and I was like, like what game out of all of these games that I have here do I enjoy the most? Have I had the most enjoyment out of? Have I devoted the most time to? It was a toss up between Minecraft. Honestly, my top three, any one of them could have been my number one.
Yeah.
So in case you don't know, it was Minecraft as number one, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original, as number two,
Classic.
and Pokemon Emerald as number three.
Yeah, that's Pokemon Emerald is the only one I think that I haven't played. I didn't have a lot of Pokemon games. One honorable mention that I didn't mention, but maybe I should mention, is like kind of an offbeat option is Pokemon Go. As much hate as Pokemon Go gets, I feel like when you're talking about like amount of time put into the game, amount of like pushing through, amount of effort put into the game, for that brief period in like 2018 or 2016 or whatever year it was.
That was like the official game of my orientation, like at UT. That was 2016, man.
Yeah.
Like I remember being there. I never played Pokemon Go. I will say that right now. This was
didn't Pokemon Go to the polls?
That was at the time that I was kind of falling out of love with the Pokemon franchise.
Interesting. Okay.
I had played Pokemon from Pokemon Sapphire all the way until basically Pokemon Black and White. That was the last game. That was like in 2010, by the way. So just to show you how long ago that was.
See, that's all stuff I'm unfamiliar with because I never played like the Pokemon games.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of. That kind of surprises me. I feel like I have a false memory of you telling me that you've played some of them.
I am familiar with Pokemon, and I had Pokemon cards, but I never played the games.
But by the time the Pokemon Go craze, that was already like 5 or 4 years after I kind of stopped playing Pokemon like seriously. And by seriously, I just mean like keeping track of all the releases and like making sure I have a copy and like playing the main game and having fun with it. All right. So, let's get back to the main list.
The one
here.
That's actually on that, yeah. So Star Wars Battlefront 2 is, and to clarify, that you were talking about the, 2008 or whatever, like the one.
Yeah, I think it's 2007.
Yeah.
Or 6. It's one of those two.
Yeah, it was like near Revenge of the Sith release, yeah.
I'm talking about the original Battlefront 2, not the new one.
Yeah.
That is not very good.
Not my Battlefront.
I cannot tell you like the sheer tonnage of hours I spent playing Battlefront 2 when I was a kid in elementary school, when I was a kid in middle school, when I was in high school,
Yeah.
even in college. I played it a lot. Um, I just love this game. I mean, even though it is so limited compared to today's games,
Yeah.
it still has like all of the charm of what video games used to be in like the mid 2000s, where when you bought a game, you had the complete game.
Yeah, and it was fun. It had like the basic, like it had all you needed for a full game. Like it felt like a full game for
It
sure.
had all of the maps, it had space battles, it had
And a cool campaign
like
too.
it had campaigns, it had like an overhead strategy, which wasn't very strong, but it was kind of cool that
Yeah.
they included it. I really do mean it when, in those days, and I'm going to sound like an old man here, but in those days when you bought a game for 40, 50, $60, like you had the complete game. It
Yeah.
used to be that you'd buy a game for that much, and maybe a year or two after that, there might be like a small expansion pack just to reward you for playing the game, right?
Yeah.
Like $10, you get a few more a few more maps, a few more guns, and a few more classes.
Yeah,
It
and like
wasn't
skins or whatever, yeah.
right,
You used to be able to unlock it in the game. Like because you played it a lot, you would unlock new
right.
classes, yeah.
You used to be able to unlock everything, and now, and I don't know how off base this is because maybe the trends have changed a little bit, but like
No, I think you're 100%
when
right.
when I was playing games on the Xbox One, I was so surprised at how many instances when I bought the base game, I didn't have anywhere near close to the complete experience of the game.
Yeah, yeah, it's like you have to pay to play the game. Like you got front end purchases and there's back end purchases, and it's just like, yeah.
And I think that comparison or that theme is very potent to bring up with the Battlefront franchise, because when they remade it, it turned into
Yeah,
a game where you
loot
didn't have everything
boxes.
on
Yeah.
launch. Yeah, you had DLC, you had all of these expensive season passes, and the first Battlefront re-release itself was critically panned
Yeah.
because it was so incomplete. And
Yeah.
Battlefront 2, the new one, didn't really change a lot of that. So you compare that to the old Battlefront 2, which had a complete game in it from the get-go, and you can just drop right in and start playing. It's a really special experience.
So yeah, to give like a little bit of my background with the game is that obviously I played it a lot at friends' houses, and like it was like the game that you played, like the sleepover game, and like you're just going hard
Yeah,
on
it
it.
is the ultimate sleepover game.
But I had more of a relationship because at that time I didn't have one of the main consoles. I had a Wii and I had a PC. So my
Hmm.
main relationship was with Battlefront 1 actually on the PC.
Yeah, great game.
Also a
Still a
great
great
game.
game.
Yeah, it was like
Yep.
I think this one was like 2004. Like it was before the release of Episode 3 because they had the Phase 1 clone troopers. I remember was like the
It's
class.
fantastic. Yeah, yeah, they
But
did. I
it
love
was
those.
very limited from the perspective of like fewer maps, definitely. Only like I say fewer maps, like way more maps than Battlefront 2017 did, which is just embarrassing.
Oh,
Um,
God, terrible.
and also another thing I think that was a big game changer on Battlefront 2 was that you had the hero class or whatever.
Yeah,
That was not present in the first game.
right.
And it was like really basic, and they had like the similar classes, and it was like fun, and like I personally love the Phase 1 clone trooper design. If you don't know Star Wars, Phase 1 is the original like Attack of the Clones clone trooper look. I think that's a really cool look with like the little T visor or whatever.
Well, and they're like cylinder shaped helmets, but
Yeah,
then the second phase, or the latter phase rather, I like it because they look more clearly like stormtroopers,
yeah, you see
which
the
I think is like what they're
evolution.
trying to get at to you. Yeah,
Yeah, it was cool, like evolution of like yeah. But so yeah, I definitely dig the Phase 2, but I got love for Phase 1. But anyway, like it just was such like a classic, like to capture the command post. And I remember like all of the like dialogue too. Like if I hear the dialogue again, it'll be like bring me back to like that era of like. I'll never forget the like this is nothing like this simulations or whatever.
right.
And like that was just like such a classic line. But yeah, and I obviously got later in life got Battlefront 2 and I played it myself, but mostly it was that Battlefront 2 was played at friends' houses, and then I got Battlefront 1 in 2017, and I was really excited
Yeah,
for it. because I had gotten more into first person shooters. You'll see on my list, I put a little note on Black Ops 2 is Black Ops 1, which is my fifth rated game, mostly because of zombies.
Right.
But like, cause that was just like kind of my, another ultimate sleepover maneuver is to like do
Oh man.
the zombies or whatever. And I just plugged so many hours in that. I wasn't very good, but I just plugged a lot of hours into it. But anyway, like up until Black Ops 1, I had not had a Call of Duty game. And so I had no experience with first person shooters except for Battlefront and Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
And even those are like you have, I think you like opt in to third person or first person. You can do.
I do that a lot. Yeah.
But Black Ops was fully first person, so it's like you're in that mode, and that was like my first introduction to that game space. And so I didn't really get fully into it. I played it a lot though, and definitely not by 2017. I wasn't still playing it, but I thought like, okay, when I was a youngin, I didn't have a lot of experience with first person shooters. Now, as a 2017 adult, I'm getting a new and improved first-person shooter, Star Wars Battlefront. Let's go. Like, it's going to be great. And I just got the game, and I had nothing. Like, it felt like you had nothing. You didn't, for one, you only had the Galactic Civil War classes. So you had the Rebels and Empire.
No clones, no droids.
Yeah, I have such a love, whether you can talk about the prequels of whether or not you like them or not, but regardless of that, I think that you have to have love for the world that they created. Like, I don't necessarily love all of the movies, but I do love like the world that they created, and like there's just something so classic about the a battle droid saying Roger Roger, or the Australian voice of the clones, and it's just fun. And they lost that with the Stormtroopers, which really sucked. Or with Battlefront 1, which is just Stormtroopers and Rebels. There was definitely some cool parts about it. They had cool hero fights, but yeah, no, it was a bit.
Let's talk a little bit about Black Ops, because I don't have a whole lot of experience with the Call of Duty franchise. I'll tell you my Black Ops story though.
Yeah.
I rented Call of Duty Black Ops for the Wii at a Blockbuster.
You rented a video game at a Blockbuster? This is such like a early 2000s.
In the year of our Lord, 2010.
Yeah.
It had to have been 2011 because I didn't get a Wii until 2011. So here it is. So here, how many levels of abstraction? I mean, it wasn't even true Black Ops, which, for all intents and purposes, is on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. I got it for the Wii because I didn't have any of those other consoles, and I still don't. And I rented it for the Wii at a Blockbuster in 2011. Just to show you my experience, how quaint it is. Loved it, though. I thought it was a great game, even though I had to play for it. I had to play it on the Wii.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of an interesting experience because I didn't have a GameCube controller or a classic controller at the time.
Yeah.
So I had to use the motion controls, which are a bit awkward.
Yeah, the remote. Yeah, it's like playing with the TV remote.
But I didn't have online access at the time for the Wii, and I don't know how good the online would have been for the Wii in 2011. But I played the campaign, and the campaign was a lot of fun. There were a lot of like memes that came out of that campaign too.
Yeah.
Like the numbers, Mason. I think that's where that's
what
from.
Do you mean? Yeah, that's exactly what that's from.
Right.
Yeah.
So like a lot of good memes came out of the Black Ops campaign. So I'm glad that I got a chance to like understand at least a little bit of it, because I'll tell you why. Because after a certain point, my rental disc would freeze in the game. And I played the campaign twice to get to that same point, and it always froze.
No.
So I never got to beat it. Call of Duty campaigns, you can beat them in a day, maybe 2 days, because they're so thin. Yeah. But they're a lot of fun.
I don't even think they have a campaign anymore. Like, I think like a couple years ago they were like, yeah, we don't do campaigns anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty lame if you ask me. But
because it was fun, it was historical, ahistorical mostly, but it was like historically based. It was fun, and like Vietnam,
there's so much,
and like intrigue.
There's so much opportunity for good storytelling in those games, and I think they just passed it up.
Yeah, I thought it was cool because they connected. I played the World at War as well, and they connected to that storyline. The World War II storyline kind of connected pretty well, so that was fun too.
But zombies, man, you mentioned it earlier too. That was like the slumber party game. I never had it, right? But I would go to my friends' houses and they all had zombies and Call of Duty, and like it's a rite of passage to play Black Ops Zombies with your boys and like see who makes it out, and how far you can get, how many rounds you can go in. I don't remember how well we did playing, beating up zombies, and like having a big, putting your fists inside, putting your hand inside of like a big bowl of cheese puffs, shoveling them in your mouth, Mountain Dew. Oh man, that's like that was life, man.
Yeah. So I think I got my Xbox 360 in spring of 2011. So the game had come out that November. I got the Xbox in the spring, and I was on it at that point, or maybe I got it for Christmas. I don't know. Originally, actually played the game same as you, Marco, on the Wii with my brother. It was actually my brother's Wii
crazy.
and my brother's Black Ops. And just going back and forth, the graphics are super nerfed on the Wii. Like
they are suspect, man. Those graphics are suspect.
and I remember my mom, like, this was at the transition of like being more conscious of like violence in video games and like
sure.
So
yeah.
But also like cracking a bit and like letting us get some video games as me and my brother.
Right.
So I remember when my brother and I played it on the Xbox or on the Wii, even though the graphics were absolutely nerfed already, we turned on like parental mode or something like that.
Oh no!
And it got rid of the blood and it got rid of the cursing. So yeah, that was just a nerf on nerf game of like that of Call of Duty. So that was great.
Nerfed on nerf. So that's brilliant.
But once I like got it on Xbox, I just like, yeah, I'm gonna turn this off, and I just like did it with the cursing and blood, and I don't think they noticed. Like I'm curious if they did, and they just didn't say anything. Of like they just heard this like random F-bomb getting dropped, and like while I'm playing the game, and they're like, okay, whatever.
So I kind of noticed that, like, so I can tell on your list, or maybe it's just Call of Duty. Do a lot of these games have a social aspect for you that leads you to put them here on your list, or is it just Call of Duty?
So that's the kind of funny thing is it really just Call of Duty. Like online multiplayer, Call of Duty is the only one.
Right.
Lego Star Wars, that's a whole different thing because that's like my brother and I doing the couch co-op, whatever.
Oh, that's great.
Going through the games. It's fun, We played some Lego games during quarantine as well. Just like
that's a good one because you don't have to. There's no split screen there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's kind of difficult because I remember like you would always like drag. Like there was no split screen, so you would like literally drag if you're going one direction, you drag the other player if they're like idle or something. You just like drag them away, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, those were the two like social games. The other games, like I had friends that played them and I talked about them. But there was no like co-op at all for one, and like I think as time went on, there was less of like a social thing, even talking about the games. Because looking at my list, like the earliest game is Lego Star Wars from 2007. The latest game on my list, which is not the latest, like I still play games, but this is just the latest one that happened to be on my list, was 2017. The 2017 one, I think Lego Star Wars everyone played, I think. Like a lot of people.
Right,
like there's a whole
I did too.
Internet following on it. And just I 100% that game. Like I just completioned it. No, my brother and I just like went hard on it. But Miller Shadow of War, the most recent one, like I had one friend that played it a bit, but he like gave up on it because he thought it was too hard. Which is like, I don't know, I like a little bit of the challenge. And interesting, so of my list, I could tell you I was trying to get a diversity, but really like there's a definite split between 3 and 5, which 3 is Lego Star Wars, 5 is Call of Duty. Those are two cooperative games. One's from my childhood, one is a very violent video game. And the other 3, 1, 2, and 4 are all stealth-based, kind of free-flow parry combat games that are third-person perspective and single player, very story-driven.
So this is where, I think maybe our gaming tastes start to converge a bit, or diverge, rather.
Yeah, diverge.
Because I, genuinely cannot stand games like that.
Which ones?
Well, like the stealth-based, slow-moving, story-based games. Granted, I have not played these games that you have here.
Yeah.
And, again, for the listener, that's Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, Arkham City, and Middle-earth, Shadow of War.
Batman Pirates and Lord of the Rings. What's not to love? You know,
And well, great. These are great franchises
and
on their
IPs.
own.
Yeah,
Right? No, fantastic IPs. It's just that, like I said, I haven't played any of these games, but I have played a lot of similar games or games in that vein, and I tend to prefer a lot of sandbox games. I tend to
yeah.
prefer overhead strategy,
You're a creative
uh,
type, huh? Yeah.
more creative type. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think there are a few exceptions to that. Obviously, like in fact, like most of those, like I think only Minecraft and The Sims 3 would count as any of those type of games
Mhm.
on my list here. But they dominate my honorable mentions, and a lot of the other games here on my list are more. There's a nostalgia element to it as well. But if it comes to games today, I'm a lot more interested in strategy or like creative out of the box thinking.
Mhm.
It's not that I don't like being on rails. I like being on rails sometimes, but it's just I don't know. I have a hard time.
I think it's a different kind of creativity, interestingly, because like Call of Duty definitely not creativity. Definitely, it's like a reflex based game.
Right.
But with the other ones, there's a lot of puzzles in them. It's slower for sure, but like especially with Arkham and the Lego games, even like there's a lot of like small puzzles that you have to do. It's mentally engaging in a different way, maybe because okay, so with the stealth based thing, which I think is really cool because it's like almost like playing a horror movie
Hmm.
or like a jump scare. Like it's all jump scares with the stealth stuff, if that makes sense. Because it's all like you're just like it's a lot of high tension, and you're like, oh, they're gonna see me, and like yeah, run, and like it's very like tense and like
Right.
all that. So I really like that like kind of adrenaline aspect of it. But yeah, definitely not the creative and like the very like creation. Like there's no creating, but there is like creative thinking, out of the box.
I gotta tell you, like I really struggle in games like that, and by
Hmm.
struggle, I don't mean that I find them difficult. I find
Hmm.
them difficult to get engaged in.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's either a lot of those games tend to be quite slow moving. That might be it.
Bro, you play Minecraft. You play Minecraft.
But Minecraft, I get to go at my own pace though. Like if I want to go like super ham and start mining like crazy, I can. If I want to, have a wife and kids, and like build a home, and like have the American dream that I'm never going to get to have in real life, then I can do that
But
as
what do you
well.
mean by fast paced? Because with Minecraft, it's like a lot of clicking, right? Like it's just you're just clicking, and like
I mean, you've played it, like
I have played it, yeah. And you run away from.
it's more just like in Minecraft, I always know that I can do what I want to do,
Hmm.
and in a lot of the other games, well, in like most video games, they are not like that. They're
See, I think I'm attracted to like a strong narrative. I think maybe because
yeah, and
yeah,
narratives just don't do it for me. Like you can see, like in all of my top fives and my honorable mentions,
yeah,
none of these are story based games. I mean, Emerald is kind of like
yeah. That
that,
was the
but I
one I
mean,
was gonna say.
Pokemon stories are very thin. So I don't really count that too much.
Yeah,
So I think that's the other point of divergence is that I don't really care about narrative in video games. Like I love narrative in movies and TV shows and like even albums or literature, right?
yeah,
I don't know why, but in video games, I just can't get myself to care.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I think that I liked this list maybe the most of any of our lists so far. Besides memes, obviously gotta love the memes. But
Memes are the best one, yeah.
I think I like this list making process the most because you're thinking about the other modes of entertainment that we have reviewed so far, like movies, TV shows, memes, especially. You see 1,000 memes a day. Like you're just really like there's so many to choose from, and like there's so many different formats, and like there's just you see 1,000 a day, and even movies, and a movie is like 2 hours. So, I've seen a ton of movies, and watched a ton of TV shows. But
Right.
video games are like a commitment. Like video game, you can easily drop like 50 hours into a single video game. And I'm
Right.
not like I do like maybe I watch like maybe 10 movies, maybe much more than 10 movies, at least 10 movies a year, right? But I probably play like 2 or 3 games. So there was like a
Mm.
much narrower like choice, like it was a narrower selection of choices for me, and I think that made me and that made me like go ham on the honorable mentions too, because I was like, oh, I can't leave this out. I can't leave this out because it's like I spent like 50 hours on this game, even though it's not in my top 5. I spent 50 hours on it. I have to at least mention it. I spent 50 hours of my life on this.
Well, that's really interesting because, like, on the flip side, you have people that treat video games as like very disposable, like movies or TV shows. Like they blow through them and they just move on to the next one. They treat video games like video games is like their entertainment.
But you even look at the price point of each and like the monetary investment.
Oh God, you can't compare it. Video games are so much more expensive.
Yeah, it's like $60 versus $5 movie rental.
But you get more hours out of it, which is also true, like you mentioned.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. It's like it makes sense why it's. I mean, it makes sense. Like you're investing. Ideally, like I think it's really wasteful, and I know a lot of people who have done this. I don't think I've ever done this. Is like you buy a game, you try it for like 4 hours and then you're like never touch it again. Like that's like a financially irresponsible move for sure. And now they're getting with these video game streaming services or video game like subscription services, and maybe that's gonna be more of a accepted thing and more of like a financially feasible thing. But at this point, it's like really financially irresponsible to buy a $60 game and play it like 3 times. Like that's just
Oh my God! Quit adding me. I have like a stack
really
of like unplayed Wii games from yesteryear. If I look to my left, I have. Let me just tell you some of the titles that I have that I've never even played at all. I have Resident Evil 4, 2 different Legend of Zelda games that I've barely touched. I have Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword.
That's super interesting to me because like for me when I was a child, I think it's because my parents are slightly older, on the older end of the spectrum for people my age. So I think that they were less, like getting a video game was definitely like an event for us.
Yeah, me too. When
we were younger. Because it was like, my parents weren't like totally cool with the medium, I don't think. And they like didn't totally get it. And, like, they just, I don't know. It was just not like a pretty common, like it wasn't like a, it was like a very rare occurrence.
Did you,
so like, oh, we're getting a new video
Did you
game.
have the same like barrier to entry, like, even convincing your folks to get you a video game console? Because that took a long time for me. My first video game console was the Wii, and that was 5 years after it was released.
Yeah, okay, so super weird. They were pretty chill about... So we were very on PC.
Right.
Like, very on PC. Like,
Hey, that's the way to be, man. That's the way to be. If you know what's up, that's the way to be.
It's been kind of like a like back and forth thing though, because like now it's like, oh yeah, that's the way to be, and it's like financial, like that's the financial way to do it because it's a lot cheaper and like all like all this stuff. But back then, it was just out of necessity because that's all we had, and like I just played a bunch of like Harry Potter, and like I played like Battlefront, like I was saying, on the computer, and like Battlefront Real Earth, which is like those strategy games. Those are definitely the best on like the PC for sure. But yeah, so I went from PC to like weirdly, my parents were like, when the Wii came out, we like got the Wii. Like we
Brilliant.
just like got it. I was like surprised.
Yeah.
Like I was, I'm like, when it came out, I was like in like second grade or something.
Yeah.
Like something crazy.
Dude, it was like a cultural moment. It was like a phenomenon. Like,
yeah, it was a big thing, but like I just you're not super tapped into all that stuff, and you don't know how big of a moment it was.
Right.
And I think it was one of the bigger moments that I remember of like, this is a moment. But we just like, before I even like the hype had even fully, I remember the commercials a lot, I guess, but before the hype had even fully taken over, I think like my parents just got it, which was like, super lucky. Like shout out to them, like that was fantastic. But there was like a ton of like hand wringing that went into getting the Xbox 360 and like when I was in like middle
school. The hand wringing, man, you never forget it. It's at the top of your mind, and
it sticks with you.
And you swear, right? You wave your little fist to the sky, and you're like, man, when I'm an adult, I'm gonna buy every console release day.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, yeah, it was like that. The 360 was difficult, and once I got it, it went from like, okay, can we get a console to, like, it went from can I get a teen rated game,
right?
Because I'm like 11 at the time, I guess, to like, can I get an Xbox 360? To can I get an M-rated game? Because I'm on the Xbox 360 now ecosystem, and all of my friends are playing M-rated game, so it's like what, like I can't do anything, and so that was like the last hill to climb, I guess.
Right.
But like then, and I was a little behind everyone once I got past that, so it was kind of like lost a bit of the magic, maybe.
Yeah, that's a big deal too.
Yeah, and looking at my games, I think it's interesting. I looked at the ratings, and you'll see them on there. Of like 3 of the top 5 are M. Not surprisingly, which one's which, and one's T, Batman Arkham City, which I haven't talked about much, but like that, and that one's also shout out to the whole franchise because that's just like the storyline's fantastic. The combat was revolutionary at the time. Like they really created that brand of combat, and obviously Lego Star Wars. I in my memory it was E, but I looked it up and actually it's E10.
Oh boy,
so it's E10 plus. So we're getting a little spicy there.
If you haven't already, I'd like you to go to the link that I have in the show notes for Marco
Yes,
number
sir.
1. This, and of course we will put this in the show notes as well. And like we'll put this in the real show notes, and I'm having Eli click a link from our topic sheet. This is a starter pack. You may be familiar with the meme format starter pack, which is like...
I know a starter pack.
Yeah.
I know starter
Yeah,
packs.
yeah. For the uninitiated, starter packs are like a collection of images and texts and things that are like, oh, this is the starter pack if you are the annoying kid at school, right? And it might be like some Skechers light up shoes and like a whole bunch of random stuff that like the annoying kid at school was like, right? There are a whole bunch of examples of this on the internet, and there are a whole bunch of different types of starter packs that people do, and I've had Eli click on a link to the starter packs subreddit. This link has been on our topic sheet for a while, and when I first saw it, this was something that I knew that I thought maybe you and I could use our platform to kind of talk about and discuss and maybe dissect a little bit. You and I, of course, Eli, I would hate to speak for you, but I make a charitable assumption. You and I, Eli, are straight cis men.
Yep.
And, you know, there's a lot of, I guess, societal baggage that can come with that. And there's an interesting like line of discussion that you and I can take to, I guess, be better role models, right?
Yeah, yeah. And be better like community members even, you know?
Right. So first, what is this, right? What am I talking about? So this link is a starter pack that is titled Shitty Motivation for Young Men starter pack. This is like, you name it. This is like Joker stuff. This is stuff about being a lone wolf, the millionaire mindset, you know, being rich,
Elon Musk,
you know, lone wolf stuff, right? Increasing your height, Joe Rogan.
There's a lot of toxicity.
There's toxicity. There's classism here. There is insecurity. Put on
a bunch of white people.
Put on full display. Yeah, it's a little white. Didn't want to go there, but you went there.
Yeah. Spicy. We said we were getting spicy.
So we will link to this in the show notes, of course, so you can have a look at it. And obviously, the starter pack is being critical of this kind of thing, really calling it out for the kind of intellectual garbage that it is, right? But Eli, you and I are young men. You and I have kind of been here before. These things tend to be targeted for, I think, younger men than us. We are both 23. I think that's right.
No, but I'm 20. I'm 22, but it's fine.
Okay, okay. We are both 23 in a manner of speaking. I think a lot of these things tend to appeal to teenage boys a lot. Although certainly there are no shortage of 20-somethings that really should know better that fall for this stuff.
Yeah.
But you and I feel like, again, I would hate to speak for you, but I feel like we've been here at this crossroads before of where are we going to go, right? Are we going to fall down this rabbit hole of crappy messaging for young guys?
Yeah.
Or are we going to go down maybe like a healthier road, right? With
what type of man am I going to be?
Yeah. I mean, and I don't even mean that in like a jokey way. I do think that is a useful question to ask of young men here, particularly here in the Western world. So let's dissect this. You know, what is your history with this kind of thing, if you have one or not? and why don't you go ahead and talk to me about it?
I've been able to avoid a lot of this space, I think, compared to most people. Just like this online spaces that I inhabit, I think maybe.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely when I was a lot younger. I mean, you and I saw the Joker movie together.
Yes, we did.
And I think neither of us went out of that movie theater thinking like, oh man, yeah, that's who I want to be. That's
Right.
the guy who's got it all figured out. I think we had generally the same view of that movie. Granted, that I guess that was in 2019, so like I was 20 and you were 21,
Right.
at the time. But still, we like maybe when I was younger, like we got to go back to like I think maybe like 20. I don't know. When I was like 2013, when I was like 13 years old.
Oh man, that was a huge year for this kind of stuff. Yeah, 2013, man.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, was it a huge year like for me? Like, was it just me? I don't know. Like I think the thing at that age was that I wasn't taking I was not taking at all a broad mindset to this kind of stuff of like, going on the internet. I didn't think like 3-dimensionally of like, this is something that's being targeted at me, or like this is, I'm following this trend. Like I didn't think in trends at all because I was so young. I thought that everything on the internet was like by people like me, for people like me.
Sure.
And like,
yeah,
I thought, and I thought I was special too, which is kind of like paradoxical of like everything's for you, but also, you're special too. And yeah, I think that I remember thinking it was like cool. Like I remember like the person that definitely caught my eye here on the left is Dan Blazarian. I don't know if you're familiar.
I am
with
not.
Dan
This
Blazarian.
is great. Like I don't know some of this stuff, and I think maybe you do. So I'd love to hear more about this guy.
All right, he's the absolute worst.
Oh.
He's like this like billionaire guy. I don't know how he got his money. I think he's like probably born rich-ish, but he's like this white buff bearded guy.
Right.
He was like all about like beards, and like you should link his social media because it's all a bunch of like him with like women in bikinis and like 5 different women with him.
Gosh.
And, like,
terrible.
you go on his Wikipedia page and you like look at like the lawsuits and like the controversies and like the different like I think like racist and misogynistic things he said and done.
God.
And, like I remember there's this one like crazy story of him like getting sued because he like pushed a woman off like a roof into a table or something like that, and she like hurt herself and like
Terrible.
something like crazy of like just like the worst human being in the world and gets away with everything because he's rich. But I think that there was like, when you were, after talking about how horrible a human being this is, it sounds horrible to like say like, yeah, when I was younger, I like idolized this person.
Yeah.
But I don't think I got full idolization. I think I was at this like, oh man, that's cool that he's got like money and women and like he's very independent and like he's very like strong and like, when you're like 13 or 12 or whatever, it's like, what else do you want to be? He's got cars, he's got boats and shit. Like, what else is there in the world other than women, boats, cars?
That's like those are like the 3 most important things in the world for a young guy,
Yeah, a boat, a woman, and a car is all you need.
That's a good way to. It's a good place to start. It's so difficult, like untangling some of this stuff, right? You grow up with all of these expectations about what a man is in society, right? And again, we're talking pretty much exclusively here in the West, right? Or here in the US.
Yeah.
You grow up with these expectations that a man is like James Bond or like Jason Bourne or, or even someone like Captain Kirk, who is handsome, who's confident, who's cool, who's chill.
Yeah, and like, super promiscuous with alien women and whatnot.
Right, but until promiscuous, none of those are bad qualities to have, right? And being promiscuous is not inherently bad either. But there's a womanizingness, right, that is kind of held up in high regard. That is, we don't have to say it. It's a bit problematic, right? If not a little,
and misogynistic,
if not a lot problematic. So.
Yeah, it's objectifying.
Right. But, you reach the age, the prime age to receive this kind of crap, in your teens, right? And you know that most guys are not going to be like that, or you're not like that. So you jump down this rabbit hole of the millionaire mindset. I'm going to be rich, lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf, society doesn't understand me. You get drawn into that, and at first glance, you look at this stuff and you just kind of shrug it off. You say, well, this is just kind of corny stuff, right? But this leads down some pretty terrifying rabbit holes. And I think,
Yeah.
unfortunately, all roads lead to the alt-right. So this is the kind of thing where it is worth discussing how to, again, untangle it. And, you and I are like the prime people to talk about this kind of stuff. We need more people, like us and others, right? To say, hey, like, this is what young men, in their teens are consuming, right? And how is it changing the way they think about their role in society?
So I think that I think maybe a place to start out of like what the crux of this discussion is going to be is okay. So there's been a lot of talk of, and you mentioned the alt right, like we can in place of even alt right, we can just say generally bigoted, person.
Sure.
Like we don't have to go straight to alt right. And I think that maybe that's something that you and I maybe can try and like parse through and trying to get to the answer of this is like, so how much of this stuff is like there's been a lot of discussion of like algorithm of like, the internet's pushing me in this direction. And so I think it's a question of like, how much is this like the algorithm just pushing you in this direction of like, you start at something seemingly innocuous and then you go to something that's very dangerous. How much is this the algorithm, or how much is this something inherent to the thing of itself of like, even if it seems innocuous, there's this latent problematic like thing that's pushing you toward more problematic things as you get deeper into this thing of like, like even taking something like, you can name anything on this board. Let's just talk about lone wolf, because lone wolf bullshit is so prominently displayed in the graphic.
Right.
How bad, like, is there something and that seems innocuous, right? Like, if you let's just like go back in the past, like maybe like 40 or 50 years. I don't think that lone wolf was as loaded of a term. Maybe you don't even have to go back that far. Maybe even 20 years ago or 10 years ago, lone wolf wasn't as loaded of a term as is today. Of like,
sure,
like you can can call someone a lone wolf and not have it be, I have all these implications of like, oh, he's whatever. I think a lone wolf used to just mean kind of like, okay, he just does his own thing and that's okay.
Right.
But nowadays it's like loaded with this like alpha male, like lone wolf. I don't need anybody, closed off.
Right. And we know that when someone decides to cut off from society, in a way that is clearly, indicative of kind of negative behavior. I mean, that's a red flag, right? Not everyone who chooses to cut off from society is a bad person. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we associate that kind of behavior with, like as you said, right? Potentially dangerous behavior, and I think primarily antisocial behavior, right?
Asocial is one thing to be like, but antisocial of like, a genuine hatred for like the contemporary society is like, that's the real thing of like, I don't know. That's just an interesting distinction between like asocial and antisocial of like just really just a lot of like hatred toward like what is seen as like established culture, which is like seen as to be more feminine maybe, that's like kind of looked on it negatively, I think.
And we haven't even discussed like, I mean, we've tiptoed around it, but we haven't even like dived into the misogynist implications here, right?
Yeah. Especially let's go into like lone wolf. That lone wolf is like, I don't need like that. That's kind of screaming, and it didn't used to mean this. I don't think. Maybe it did. I don't know. I wasn't around 20 years ago or 40 years ago or whatever. But I feel like it didn't used to mean like I don't need no women. Like I don't need a girlfriend. Like screw girls. Like my ex is like a bad person or whatever. Like it didn't. Maybe used to mean that. I don't think. I think it can mean. I think today it can mean that, and I also think it can mean what is causing people to shrug off their support system, right? Like people have like a lot. Like most people have probably a positive support system in their lives, and yet there is no shortage of people, particularly young men, that are shrugging that off and deciding to go it alone. And I don't know, and I don't know how much of that is talk. It is just talk, and people don't actually do that,
or how much of it is true, right? And like, what's the reason for that kind of regressive, overly individualistic behavior? And part of it has to be the algorithm feeding more and more perverse and extreme versions of the same idea. But I don't know. I mean,
because I think you can be a lone wolf and you can call yourself a lone wolf and not be a bad person, and not be misogynist. Like there, if you parse the term itself, I don't think that there's anything inherently misogynistic.
no, definitely not.
It is like there you have some nuance to it of going from, lone wolf. I'm self-sufficient. I'm independent. I don't need, just that. Like I'm self-sufficient and I'm independent, and I am typically more of an asocial, introverted person. Versus like now when it's like alpha male, my ex-girlfriend was horrible, and like I don't need women anymore. Women suck. Like
Right.
all this very negative energy as part of it, and like objectifying women as like the only, like you're a lone wolf, like you should just treat women as objects basically, and not try to engage in any like meaningful emotional relationship with a person of the opposite sex as you.
Let's get into some of these other aspects here. We've got Joe Rogan. That's a big thing there.
Yeah, that's definitely like the overarching thing, it feels like in contemporary society now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's part of like this breed of people that think these things, right? That think about. I mean, it's good to think about your role in society. I think that's a good thing, but I think they contextualize it probably in the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
So it leads you to maybe this like pseudo intellectual stuff, and unfortunately, I think that's where the alt-right pipeline kind of begins. Because Joe Rogan exposes you to like bad people like Jordan Peterson or like Ben Shapiro.
So like in my experience, like this is actually just recently occurred, and it was crazy to me because it's like I feel like I'm living in this like like you hear about this all the time, and it's crazy to happen to me. Is that so? I watched a Joe Rogan video. I know. Big confession.
Canceled.
Absolutely done. It was our mayor of Austin, Steve Adler, was on Joe Rogan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I would suggest it to you, except for the fallout that I am about to tell you. I watched an interview. It was like, I don't know enough about the issues. I think that he made a pretty good, cogent argument to Joe Rogan, who was kind of more anti-homeless, I think, as how I would describe him, because like coming from California, he's like talking about like, San Francisco and obviously San Francisco is in a very different situation than Austin is, homelessness wise, and even compared to Los Angeles, a very different situation.
Right.
So I watched this one video and I go onto my, and I've since deleted my search history or my watch history. But when I just like instantly, went back to my, what's it called? Like homepage for YouTube. Right. I was getting like, I was just scrolling and you see this like Ben Shapiro thing, or this like, I think Ben Shapiro or maybe Jordan Peterson was like the furthest one. I don't think I got to InfoWars, but you just see like, right off the bat, you go from Joe Rogan, you go to Jordan Peterson, then you go to Ben Shapiro, then you go to Jordan Peterson, then you go to Crowder, and then you go to InfoWars, and like that's how it goes. And that's in my case, I'm curious because it's like in my case that was 100% algorithm, right? Like I didn't click on. I'm familiar with Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro. I didn't click on the videos. I immediately deleted my watch history, got scrubbed the Joe Rogan out of my history.
Right.
I didn't feel bad about watching Joe Rogan, and I kind of wish that I could watch more without it totally messing up my algorithm. Not that I love Joe Rogan as a show, but like sometimes he's got interesting people on, like he interviews people that like Bernie
was on it at one point too.
Yeah, I watched Bernie's back in the day, back in 2020, I think. I watched I think it was like Robert Downey Jr., who incidentally kind of falls into this like category, somewhat of like the young men lone wolf. That you see that these three people in front of quotes. I could definitely see another photo with Robert Downey Jr. in there.
Yeah, I hear you.
I was not looking for anything alt-right. I was not looking for anything that I could even pose as problematic. I was literally looking at my city's mayor discussing, his progressive stance on this issue. You know, there's nothing alt-right about it. But just because I clicked on this one name, I started getting suggested a bunch of like alt-righty things. And like, I just think that for me on that instance, it was 100% algorithm. But for other people, it's like maybe you're interested in lone wolf and you go from lone wolf, which is, you know, maybe something kind of problematic nestled inside that idea, the contemporary version of this idea.
Yeah, it really behooves the listener to go look at the starter pack. A lot of this is like pseudo self-help. It's pseudo intellectualism. It is like pseudo-societal, like contextualization or what have you. It's all surface level.
Yeah.
And you're right. It all potentially leads you down probably a pretty dangerous path. But I don't want to get too like stuck in the alt-right because I don't think that's really the crux of it. I think this is more like the alt-right is already when you're at the destination. This starter pack is like getting into your car.
Yeah.
About to drive to your destination. Like, and how do we stop people from getting into the car? And or how do we think about it when we think about people getting into the car? Sorry, the metaphor is a bit tortured now. I don't know that I was ever like at the point of getting into the car, but I could definitely see like a path where that might have had a chance of happening. Yeah, think about like the levels of abstraction here. I don't think I was that close to it, but it wasn't like a 0% chance. And part of that comes from, you know, a solid support network and also just like being exposed to different ideas. I was always like a firm liberal my entire life. And again, like none of this even has to do with politics. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like if you look at the starter pack, like it doesn't mention vote Republican or anything. It doesn't mention be conservative. It is literally just all of this like phony baloney self-help and societal critique. But it's funny. It's funny how politics get so like inextricably wrapped up in it. I think a lot of this stuff is there's a big thing adjacent to this, which is, and I also have a link, not a link, but I've also mentioned it here in the topic sheet, male fashion YouTuber. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there are no shortage of creators on the internet, on YouTube. They were a lot bigger in like 2015, 2014, but their whole mission, a lot of these male fashion YouTubers, was like getting men dressed up in suits and ties every day.
Mm-hmm.
And like promoting this idea about masculinity and being desirable to women and you know what it means to dress like a man. And my complaint is not with people that want to increase the fashion literacy of young men. Lord knows we need it. But what I'm saying is like I think that's adjacent to that, right? It goes hand in hand with this like, again, the millionaire mindset thing, right? The dress for success kind of thing, which is not a bad takeaway, but I guess I just mean that a lot of those fashion YouTubers promote the same ideas. And there's one that became kind of a meme somewhat recently on TikTok. There's this guy who goes by Alpha M on YouTube. You may have heard of this guy. If I show you a picture, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well, you might recognize him. Let me see if I can't get like a cheesy thumbnail. There you go. I'm going to send that to you, Eli, so you can see what I'm talking about.
All right.
Yeah. So this guy, Alpha M, he ostensibly is like a fashion YouTuber, like a style YouTuber, but he does a lot of like this, like going back to like the alpha male pseudo-intellectual stuff.
Yeah, his name is literally Alpha M.
Right. So it's this guy here. I sent you the link. I sent you the image.
I feel like maybe I have seen a video of his before. I don't know. I've seen videos like this before.
He used to just do like how to style your hair. Like 10 things men wear that drive women crazy or whatever. And like all that stuff, at worst, you could just call it like clickbait schlock from like the mid 2010s. But I don't know what's happened, but he's like, his whole thing has changed from that to this alpha male thing. But even in the older stuff, there were these undercurrents of a real man is like this, a real man is that, you know, and stop dressing like a Sigma male or whatever, you know, and start dressing like a rich guy or what have you. And again, it's not inherently bad to tell guys how to get their suits tailored, but there is like a problematic element of associating that with guaranteed success with women or financial success, or even promoting this idea that you can be like an inherently better man than another man. Like, that's just like a weird thing, and I think it goes hand in hand with this motivational thing.
Yeah, yeah. See, I think that you're really hitting on the crux of, I think, of like something that unifies all these like seemingly disparate things. Because like, I think we realized that there was like a through line, and obviously the person who created this meme realized that there was a through line between all these different like seemingly disparate things. And I think that's kind of the crux of it. If like everyone in this image, I think everything in this image is associated with one, like that you're better than everyone else.
Right.
I think, or maybe I'm better than everyone else, and you can be too by doing what I do. And that's like, seems super alluring. And I've talked to people who have maybe gone a little deeper down the rabbit hole. I think that that's the alluring thing is like, when you're middle schooler, when you're like young like that, you feel like no one gets you, and you feel like you're very different from everyone else, whether that's true or not. I think you feel very isolated. And that's when the support system comes in, of like, that helps a lot.
Right. Right.
But you feel very isolated from everyone else. And I think that you just like the fact that someone telling you like, you are not less, I think, being isolated, I think you think of yourself as less than. And I think that, having a voice tell you like, no, you're not less than, they're less than, you're more than. And this is how you become, you show that you're more than, this is how you be more than. But looking at, the personalities on this, which are, that I recognize, Elon Musk, Dan Bilzerian, and the Joker. Elon Musk, he's like the Tony Stark type of like, wannabe Tony Stark, I guess, of like, I'm smarter than you, I'm a genius playboy. And then Dan Bilzerian, is definitely in the billionaire category. I don't know, or maybe not billionaire, but he's a rich person.
Right.
And he's like, I'm better than you because I got money. And then the Joker, who's almost like the ultimate better than person, and regardless of how he was played to be an everyman in the movie and played to be more of a sympathetic figure, I think he displayed the ultimate symbol of I'm better than you, of like taking a life. I think is like the ultimate sign of like, I am better than you, I can choose whether you live or die. And I can take that upon myself. So I think maybe that's like a through line between a lot of the personalities on here, and a lot of the, lone wolf thing. I think that definitely implies, society doesn't get me, but right. You're actually better than them. You're a wolf. They're all sheep. You're a wolf. The same thing with the lion thing. It's like, right. Yeah, it's not that you're weird, or it's not that you're going through an awkward stage. It's literally that you're better than everyone else, and you shouldn't concern yourself with other people's opinions. Like that one really hammers it home. Of like, yeah, you should not give a crap what other people think or say or do or whatever. You just do you, which is, it's good to be independent, but it's bad to be super like just callous. That's kind of what it's asking you to do here, is be super callous and like just not care about anyone else except for yourself. Be selfish too.
It's not difficult to see like what's so appealing here. I mean, if a lot of these like things, we see the Joker, we see like a handsome, well-dressed guy with some ridiculous quote in front of it. You see Elon Musk, who is like, rightfully or wrongly, and I would say wrongly, but he is considered like this pioneering visionary, right? These are like cool people to be associated with, right? And it's not pictured here, but a very, like the comments will mention, there's also, the Wolf of Wall Street guy, right? Leonardo DiCaprio playing, I think, Jordan Belfort. Leo DiCaprio, good-looking guy, successful guy. Who doesn't want to be associated with that? And who doesn't want to look up to him and think, I could be this guy? So it's not difficult to see where the appeal comes in. Now, why do young men feel like they need to do some of this stuff? That's probably too difficult of a question for the both of us to untangle.
Yeah.
But here's where I think our conversation could get more productive is, what can people like us do to prove that there's a better way, there's a better masculinity, and there is a better way of being members of society? And this podcast may not have the widest listenership, But I'll tell you, Eli, and you'll know this from your personal experience, and I will as well. You and I have both been in positions of leadership, where our actions can sometimes dictate the tone and the culture of the room or an organization or even a classroom or whatever. Um, and particularly as it like you and I were both in positions of leadership when we were like upperclassmen, and those lower class, those freshmen and people that we have to kind of oversee. I mean, I don't want to make too much of a joke out of this or anything, but like those are impressionable kids, right?
Yeah.
And they might look up to you, right? And I really do mean this as like I guess a man to man kind of thing. And obviously that's glossing over lots of labels, but just for simplicity's sake, a man to man kind of thing. That's an interesting that is something that people like us have to reckon with, and we have to understand like our role in either defeating or perpetuating harmful stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
Defeating or perpetuating harmful habits or antisocial behavior or stupid pseudo intellectual philosophies and stuff like that, right? Like you and I have both stood in front of a room, and we have to keep an eye on our P's and Q's, and make sure that we're putting in our best foot forward.
I think at the end of the day, you can't, change what you identify as, on on any end of the spectrum. Like, you are born, obviously there's a lot of privileges that come to me for identifying as a man, and, being cis. There's a lot of privileges that come there, but that's not even my choice though. Like it's like that's just how I was born,
right?
And I think that there has to be a right way to do that, and like obviously what we're looking at here, all of these, alpha male, whatever, like that's clearly, that's not the same as identifying. This like toxic masculinity is not the same as identifying as a man.
No, of course not. No,
like there's so many differences there, and it's not the same, and there's got to be, like I said, there's got to be a right way to do this. And I think it's interesting because like you say of course, like and obviously of course,
right,
but the people who subscribe to this philosophy maybe, or this like thing, I think they really do think that this is the only way to be a real man, and that any deviation from this path is a quote unquote, like literally people use this term all the time, like feminine trait. Like that's something that people say all the time.
That's messed up. It's terrible.
It is. It's super messed up. But it's interesting that like they claim to be independent, but it's like you have to be, if you want to be a man, which is like literally like 49% of the population or whatever, then this is the way you have to do it, which I think is hilarious. It's like, I'm a lone wolf, but do it my way.
Right.
Like, I think that people genuinely, it's like, okay, if you deviate from this path, you are less than a man. I think that, maybe our role being, and what role we can have in this discussion, because it's like, I think that maybe something we could help is like, just like you said, like proving that it's not like you have options. Like this is not your only option of like, okay, well, I know I identify as a man. I have known that for a while, or maybe this is a conclusion I just come to, and it's like, this is not the only way that you do it. Like this is not the only way that you can identify as a man.